Hello and welcome back once again. This is Gina from McGuire. In this video, I'm sharing with you many different ways to use word dies. I'll be focusing mostly on large word dies or background dies made up of words. Now, I'm a big fan of large sentiments because they can fill a card nicely and be the focal point. However, if you don't have any large word dies, don't worry. All of these techniques can be done with other dies too. Basic shapes, window dies, anything you may have. I have a lot to share, so let's go ahead and dive in with the first technique. This one is to cut a window with your word die and then put some fun embellishments behind it to show through. This allows for a very simple card with a lot of impact. Now for this one, I'm using the Hero Arts Big Hugs Stamp and Die set. I love when Hero Arts comes out with these sets because the die and the stamp set are included together. They can be used together or separately. I'll show a few different versions of this throughout this video. Okay, so I'm using the Big Hugs die to cut from the top center of a piece of heavyweight white cardstock that is about 4 by 5¼ I'm going to use my T-ruler to make sure it's straight before I die cut it. After I've die cut it, I'm using my MISTI stamping tool to stamp some sentiments above and below it. I have a grid transparency here that I'm laying on top of my card to help me make sure that the sentiments are centered and straight. This is an inexpensive tool that is so helpful when doing any kind of stamping with a stamping tool. So I have lined up the first sentiments and I'm stamping those with black ink. I then have an additional word to put up there. So I will put my grid transparency back on top, make sure that word is centered up and straight, and then stamp that too. Now in my MISTI stamping tool here, I do have a sticky mat underneath my cardstock. That sticky mat is one that I cut to size, and it's just holding that cardstock there in the center so that I can do all of this stamping. Okay, now I need to create some layers to go behind this, all of which have an opening where the Big Hugs is. So I have 5 pieces of inexpensive heavyweight white cardstock, cut slightly smaller than our die cut panel. I'll hold one behind it, so I'm just going to hold it to the back of it, kind of centered up there, flip it over, and then I will trace part of the Big Hugs onto that cardstock piece that's behind it. You don't need to trace it all, just kind of the outside corners and top and bottom. I then will poke my scissors into that area and then cut around it. Doesn't matter how pretty this is at all, you need to cut a little bit outside of your pencil line. Nobody's going to see what this looks like, so we're going to fill it with some embellishments. But there I'm able to create kind of a hole there. We're basically creating a well behind the Big Hugs that'll allow us to put some embellishments in. So I'll repeat this process and cut this well or this opening into all 5 of those pieces. Once I have the opening cut on all of those, I can glue them together. So again, we're just creating kind of a well to put our embellishments behind our main die cut panel. If you're just putting thinner embellishments, say sequins behind it, you don't need as many layers here. But I'm putting pearls in there, so I need to build up some dimension inside of this. Thus why I'm using 5 pieces. Okay, so I have that all glued together, and now I can add that to the front of a note card. This is a 4¼ by 5½ inch top folding white note card. I end up changing that to a different color note card later, but I'll show you that step. Okay, now for the fun part, we get to fill this well here with any embellishments we want. You could do sequins, you could do little clay pieces, you could do gems, anything. I decided to use some pearls. These are from Trinity Stamps. I actually bought their collection, so I have a bunch of different colors. I have a lot of these gems and pearls because I use them on almost every card. They're pretty inexpensive because there's so many in a container. So I thought I'd put a lot more of them to good use for this card. Now what I'm doing is putting the pearls up close to each other, so I kind of block off the white background behind it. If you wanted to do this faster, you could do some other embellishment where you just cover the inside with liquid adhesive and then pour your embellishments in and it would hold it. You could do glitter that way, anything you want. But I really like the shine of these iridescent pearls, and I thought it would look really cool behind the Big Hugs die cut window. So I continued to fill in the entire well with the pearls. Now this took me about 15 minutes to do this step, but really it's the most time-consuming step of the card, so I didn't think it was too bad. Now I'm putting adhesive on the back of our die cut and stamped panel, and I'll glue this right on top of our layers. Now notice I am using liquid adhesive to get into the nooks and crannies of around the Big Hugs die cut window. I want that to be able to be glued on top of the pearls. We also have that little centerpiece between the B and the H, so I'm putting liquid adhesive on the back of those pieces, pressing it down, and then I'll remove the rest of those letters later. So I put something heavy on that while it dried, and now I can come back and carefully remove the rest of this, because remember, I only put adhesive behind those little openings, and there we have our finished card. Now, this is where I changed my mind. I didn't like it on the white note card. I felt like it needed color around the edge, so I'm cutting the front of this off of my note card. I'll save that back piece there laying on my desk for another project. But then I just took my Big Hugs background and I'm gluing it onto a colored note card. Again, it's still 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I often change my mind along the way. Nothing wrong with that. You just gotta kind of go with your gut feeling. And if you need to change it, go for it. All right, here's a look at the completed card. Look at those shiny pearls in there. I just think that's such a wow impact. Doesn't have to be a word die that you create your window with. Any die would work. And I did add a heart to the front, just die cut a heart and covered it with glossy accents. By the way, a lot of times when I do a colored note card, I do like to glue a white panel on the inside so it kind of matches the outside. I do otherwise leave the inside blank so I can write a personal message. Okay, let's move on to our next technique, and that is, again, to use your word dies to create a window on the front of the card. But in this case, it opens up to show more, and then it'll open again. So this is a tri-fold card. This is an excellent way to use up cardstock scraps and allow that to show through to the front. On this, I'm using the Hero Arts Thank You So Much die. That's over there on the right. But I wanted to show you the birthday die too. These are similar, can be used for the same techniques, and I'll use the birthday one later. They cut a piece that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Okay, so I want to cut this from the front of my note card, but not cut the note card apart. So here's the trick that I do. I'm using my Spellbinders die cut machine. I'll take the die, line it up with the front of my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. Now, if I just ran this through as is, it would cut along the top there because there's a cutting edge all the way around the perimeter of this die. So we need to do a little partial die cutting so it doesn't cut up there by the crease. So I'll put my cutting plate on top of it, right up against the edge, but not over the edge of the die. See how the edge of the cutting plate is right up there close to the die edge, but not over it? Now when I run it through, it won't put pressure over that edge of the die, so it won't cut up there. So I'm able to cut the sentiment from the front of my card. This is a trick that works with a lot of different background dies. Now I need to turn this into a tri-fold card. So I have another note card, same size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I just slide them into each other. I'm not going to glue it just yet, but I wanted to show you how it'll come together. So on this card, I'm going to glue a bunch of cardstock strips. You can use scraps for this, but I wanted to use these new Memory Box Paper Pack Collection pads. These have 4 each of 12 different colors or shades. So you have a medium, light, and dark of a color. And I just thought they were beautiful. I'll be using these a lot in videos, and I wanted to start today. So I picked out the colors that I like. Look how pretty those are. And I'm going to cut thin strips from these. There'll be plenty of cardstock left on each of these pieces for other projects. Now, I like to make my cardstock strip backgrounds with a bunch of different size strips, not all the same. It makes it faster to pull together, and it gives a little more interest. Okay, now I feel the fastest way to create a background from strips is to cover the background with double-sided adhesive. I'm using this one from Altenew. Now the card base that's down there is that top folding note card, but upside down. So the fold line is there on the bottom. And then I'll cover it with the strips. Now the reason I put these at an angle instead of straight across is actually there's two. One is I like the look of the diagonal. The other is I don't have to worry about making sure I continue to put them down straight. Sometimes if I line them up straight across a card, they start to go a little cattywampus. So by doing it at an angle, so much easier. Okay, so I continue to do that until I covered the entire front of that card. Then I can flip it over and use my scissors to cut the excess off. Now I'll open up this card, again it's upside down, put some adhesive on the inside, lay the die cut card right onto it so the two backs are glued together. And now we can flip that up and we have a trifold card design. That way when the card is closed, you see that stripe pattern. Then you open it up, see the stripes, and open up again, and plenty of room for your personal message. Now I thought it'd be fun to cover the front of this card with a glitter cardstock, so I die cut the thank you so much from a piece of like champagne glitter cardstock from my memory box. I trimmed the edges a little bit, put adhesive on the back of it, and then glued it right to our card front. The reason I trimmed the edges is now I'll have a little white trim around the outside. Off screen, I created 2 sentiment strips from the Hero Arts Sending Love Mail stamp set. 1 sentiment strip will go on the outside and 1 on the inside. I also die cut a purple heart for the outside. Here I'm adding 2 thin white cardstock scraps behind my sentiment strip, so it'll have some nice and strong dimension behind it on the front of my card, but you could definitely skip this. I tend to add on lots of layers. Okay, so now I'm putting the heart on the front of my card. So I'm putting strong liquid adhesive there and lay the heart right on top. And then I'll lay the sentiment strip on top of that. I thought it was fun that I could actually add elements to the front but not block our thank you greeting in the background. I die cut an additional heart to put on the inside. So the way I place it in there is I put adhesive on the back of that heart. We'll open up our card, and I'll line this up with the adhesive facing towards the camera with the heart that I see on the front of the card. I'll then close the card down. That way the heart on the inside is hidden when the card is closed. I'm adding the second sentiment strip on top of that heart, and this again will be hidden when the card is closed. It's fun to have that additional surprise on the inside. So let's take a look at the completed card. Now this is one that you could do with really any background die and allow the strips to show through, or you could do just a single word die at the top center and allow a little bit to show through. So this is a great universal card design that you can use for anything you may have. I do like these backgrounds made up of words because the sentiment is definitely the focal point of the card. Okay, let's move on to our next technique, and that is to give your word die cuts a metallic look by using embossing powder. This is a 5x7 card. I'm really enjoying making the larger cards once in a while. It was perfect with these stamps. This is the new Hero Arts Reverse Confetti Better Together stamp set. There is a coordinating die set. And this was designed by Reverse Confetti. The owner, Jen, and her daughter, which I think is awesome, her young daughter, designed this set in honor of Hero Arts. I really like that these companies are coming together to make this industry stronger. This is such a fun stamp set. I've been wanting to use it, and I'm excited to finally do so. So I have a piece of white cardstock in here that is slightly smaller than 5x7, and I'm just kind of planning out where my flowers will go. And at this point, I thought I would use this thanks die, but I'll change it up, and you'll see that in a bit. But I'm putting the die there as kind of a holding place so I can plan my flowers around it. Okay, so now I'm going to start the stamping. I'm not going to show all of the stamping steps because it's very easy to do, and there's a guide on the back of the stamp set. I just use various colors of Hero Arts ink to do these fun kind of retro layered flowers. I had so much fun creating these. I had actually just watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I feel like it has that vibe to it, or It's a Small World ride at Disney World. But you can give these flowers any kind of looks. You could do heat embossing with them. You could add sparkle, anything. There is a stem stamp in the set, but I decided to just use a straight edge and a marker to create a thin line. Okay, now for the sentiment, I changed my mind and decided to use the U from the Hero Arts Love You stamp and die set. This is an XL, so it's a 4x6 stamp set and the large dies that come together. The love and the U come apart, so you can use them together or separately. On this card, I'm just using U. Later, I'll use them both together. I wanted the U word to stand out, so I decided to give it a faux metal look. So I have a thin cardstock scrap here, and I'm putting some temporary adhesive on it, and then laying my white cardstock U die cut on top of it. I want to cover this with silver embossing powder, but I'm going to change it up a bit. To do so, I just press my VersaMark ink pad directly over the die cut, and then I pour on my silver embossing powder and heat set it. Now that gives a very thin layer, and it doesn't look like wow yet. You want to do multiple layers of embossing because it makes the edges smooth and it turns your die cut from paper into a really cool embellishment. So after you emboss that and give it a few minutes to cool, I'm going to press another layer of VersaMark ink on top of that heat embossing and add more silver embossing powder. Now for my example, I only did it twice, but you could do many layers for more dimension. After letting that cool, I'm putting VersaMark ink only on the bottom half of the letters. So I'm just pressing the ink pad on the bottom half of the letters, leaving the top undone. And this time I'm putting on a silver sparkle embossing powder. That way the top half is just silver and the bottom has sparkle to it. It just adds some more interest onto this large word die. So here's a closer look at the final result. So much fun. You can do that with any specialty embossing powders. Now I did die cut 2 additional U die cuts from white cardstock, glued those together, and then glued that on the back side of our faux metallic U, just so it has more dimension. So here's a look at the final card. Now this is 5x7. It's a black note card, so you can see that little black trim, and I put white on the inside. Now on this, I did stamp "Are Amazing" underneath the word U, and I added some pearls to the flowers and little details with a white gel pen, just to make them pop even more. You can also see there are some butterflies scattered in the background. That is from the Hero Arts Butterfly Confetti background die. I just cut it from white cardstock, glued a few together for dimension, and added them to the background. That adds some interest to the white space, but doesn't make it too busy. So I really thought these flowers were so much fun. A lot of things you can do with it, and that large word die really makes it stand out. Okay, we're on to our next technique. This also uses the Love You, but this time we're going to use our word dies as a stencil or a mask. This way I can create a 1-layer piece that I die cut to turn into a puzzle. This is such a fun way to send someone a greeting. So I have a piece of Gina K Masking Magic masking paper. You could use thin scrap paper here or any masking paper. I die cut the word "Love You" from the center of it. And this is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to place the negative space onto a piece of white cardstock that is a little bit smaller, and then we can ink over that opening. But first, I do need to put in the center of my O's and my E. So I just lay the words back in place. I'm not sticking them down, just putting them into the opening as a guide for where to position the center of the O and the center of the E. Now you could use, as I mentioned, a reusable piece that you could make into a stencil that you can use over and over. But this mask is easy to use because it sticks. And Gina K Masking Magic is pretty durable, so I can use this mask over and over. Okay, so now I'm pressing that down and it's time to ink over the opening. I'm using my Gina K blending brushes and some Hero Arts inks. I have bubble gum. I think I did pale tomato, and then soft apricot. Now I'm just putting down a light application of color over the opening, doing a little bit of blending between the colors, but not taking too much time. We're going to do some stamping on this too, so my blending doesn't have to be that great. So keeping the mask on, or our stencil, in place, I will put this inside of my MISTI stamping tool and stamp on top with the Hero Arts Butterfly Garden stamp. This has a lot of beautiful detail to it. It's such a great background stamp. And that detail will show up in these large opening of letters. So I stamped over it with Ultra Pink, a dark pink. Now we can remove our stencil or our mask pieces and check that out. Such a neat effect, nice and smooth. Now I'm putting the die cut mask themselves, the Love and You, right on top of the inking we just did. Now I have the Hero Arts script stamp, a favorite of mine. I've used this in videos before. And I'm stamping this right over the entire background. So before we stamped inside of the letters, now we're stamping outside of the letters. And I'll stamp this with a bubble gum pink, so it's not too distracting. It's a lighter ink color. So now we have a 1-layer piece with the look of dimension thanks to the stencil or mask that we created with the word dies. Now you could just turn this into a regular card, but I wanted to make a puzzle card. So this white cardstock piece is 80-pound Nina, which is a little thinner than what I normally use. And I'm gluing it onto a piece of 80-pound colored cardstock, which is a little thinner than I normally use. It's from Concord and Ninth. Because they're thinner, I can glue them together and still die cut through the two layers. I'm covering the back of my white piece with Gina Connect liquid adhesive. You saw me spread it around, so I had good application. I'll then press those together and then let it sit for a bit so that adhesive is dry before moving on. Now I'm taking the Hero Arts puzzle die. This is a new die. It cuts those puzzle pieces, but not the outside edge. So I can just die cut this entire piece and turn it into a puzzle that I can mail to the recipient. I did send this through my die cut machine 3 or 4 times just to make sure that it die cut through the 2 layers nicely and it worked like a charm. So here you can see my die cut background. I'm not going to break all the pieces up just yet because I need to photograph the card and I don't want to take the time to re-put the puzzle together to photograph it. So you can see that the pieces do come apart. Now I wanted to have a little envelope inside of our big envelope. The little envelope will hold the puzzle pieces. So I have a smaller envelope here. It's a 4-bar. And I thought I'd use the puzzle die to make an impression on the flap. So I have my Spellbinders die cut machine and I have my embossing mat in there. I open the envelope so the flap is exposed and put the die on top of that, and I'm running that through. Because I used an embossing mat, the die will make an impression on the envelope flap instead of cutting it. And there you can see now it matches our card nicely. I wanted a belly band to go around this, so I cut a piece of long cardstock and I'm wrapping it around and then reinforcing those folds. I'll then glue the 2 flaps together and I have a belly band to hold our envelope closed. So again, I have a smaller envelope to hold the puzzle pieces, which will go inside a bigger envelope, a regular size envelope, that I'll mail to the recipient. The reason I made a belly band for that inside envelope is I didn't want to seal it because I wanted the recipient to be able to put the pieces back in if they wanted to. So I added a heart to that and then a sentiment right across the front of the belly band, and there we have our inside envelope. So I took some photos of the final project. Here's the puzzle. I did break all those pieces up and then put them inside of the smaller envelope with the belly band around it. That I'll put into a regular size envelope so I can send it to the person in the mail. By the way, before you break up the puzzle pieces, you can write your message on the back so they see the final personal message when the puzzle is assembled. Now, if you want to, you could instead just stick a little personal message on a piece of cardstock in there. Up to you. I've done puzzle cards before, and I'll link to another video with more ideas. Okay, my next idea for using word dies creatively is to do an inlay technique. I love the look of inlay, and it's a great way to create a card with the look of layers, but not the added bulk. So in this case, I'm going to show you how to do the inlay with that background and the word die. Starting with a piece of white cardstock, and I'm cutting the Hero Arts Geometric Sun die, which I think is the coolest die, doing it towards the top center. I will then poke out all those little bits and pieces, and we'll inlay other color pieces into that. Next, I have a piece of copy paper, thin printer paper, and I'm putting on that some double-sided adhesive. There are other ways to do this, but I find using thin paper and double-sided adhesive is the best way to go. I'll then remove the release paper, and I'll place our die-cut piece right on top of that. By the way, this is a little bit smaller than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, so now I have my white cardstock piece, and the open areas have exposed adhesive, so we can inlay our colorful pieces. So I dug through my scrap drawer, and I die cut from a bunch of different colors of orange and pink cardstocks. I also used a fun holographic cardstock just to add a little bit of shine. Yes, I did inlay each of those dot pieces, but it doesn't take all that long, especially because this is the focal point of the card. There's not much else to do after it. Now, by doing some of the die cuts from a holographic cardstock, I'm adding some shine to it without bulk. Normally, I would do gemstones on this, but that adds bulk. So by doing little die cut shapes like this and inlaying them, we're going to have a smooth result. So I continued to inlay all of those openings with different colors of die cuts. There you can see the background. I actually changed my mind and decided to peel away the center and add a dark coral instead. Once I'm happy, I can press that down with a bone folder and we have a nice smooth inlay result that is so cool, especially with the holographic cardstock. Next, we need a word die. I'm using the Hero Arts Happy Thanks stamp and die set. So you get the 4x6 stamp set and the 2 dies together. I have used this thanks in another video. I'll link to it here for some more ideas for you. I decided to use the thanks die here, and we're going to do an inlay with the thanks also, right on top of the inlay we've already done. So I'm placing the thanks die right on top, and then I will run that through my die cut machine. Because I use thin copy paper on the back, we don't have too many layers to cut through. I just sent it through my die cut machine a couple times just to be sure it cut completely. Now I have a piece of white cardstock cut to the same size as our die cut background, and I'm covering that again with an Altenew adhesive sheet. You could use glue stick here, whatever you want. I just find these very easy to use. I'll remove the release paper and lay our die cut panel onto that. So now we have a piece where the word thanks has the adhesive exposed. So I die cut the word thanks from some black glossy cardstock, which is my newest obsession. It's from Erin Lee Creative. I'll link it below. And I put that right into the opening. So we still have a very smooth card with the look of dimension. So if you like dies, but you don't want to have the bulk for mailing, inlay is definitely your best option. So I added that onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch pink note card. Here you can see that smooth look, but we added interest by using a glossy cardstock for the thanks and the holographic cardstock for some of the die cuts in the background. Inlay is a really fun technique, especially when you put a word die at the center like this. Okay, let's move on to our next technique for word dies. This is to use your word dies to create shaker card. Now this is a really easy way to make a shaker card, believe it or not. So I used the birthday message background die that I showed you earlier from Hero Arts, and I cut it 4 times from white cardstock. I'm trimming each of them down a little bit to be a bit smaller, so you can see me cutting a little bit off of each edge. Once I'm done, I'm gluing all 4 of those layers together. This forms the walls of our shaker card. Now you could have tried to use foam tape in all these openings, which would have been hard. You could have used a piece of craft foam and die cut from that to form the walls. But I find building up die cut panels from cardstock is the way to go. I use an inexpensive white cardstock for this that's very heavyweight. I'll link to that below if you want to check it out. And it's a great way to form the walls of your shaker card. So after I glued all of those together, I'll glue that background onto a piece of solid white cardstock. This forms the back of our shaker windows. Now I'm not completely covering the back with adhesive because I'm using bigger shaker bits. But if you're using glitter or anything small, you want to have really secure walls where they can't get behind them. Okay, so now into each of those wells or openings, I'm adding some Gina K hearts. These are little clay embellishments. Anything would work in here. Gemstones, little sequins, anything. But I thought I would do a rainbow going from the top to the bottom, so you see me adding just a few at a time. I don't want to overfill because I want this to be able to shake when the recipient gets it. Okay, off screen, I die cut another birthday background, and this is from black glitter cardstock. On the back of that black glitter cardstock background, I'm putting some liquid adhesive, and then I'll add a piece of acetate or clear transparency. Mine is actually from some recycled packaging, which works fine. So I lay that on there, give that a little bit of time to dry, and this will just get glued onto our background. So it's really quite easy to make a shaker card from a background die like this. I did decide to pour in a few tiny little crystal gemstones, and then I can add my liquid adhesive to the gaps here on the front or top of our shaker walls, then add our black glitter cardstock piece that has the acetate on the back of it right on top, and that seals our little shaker windows. I then added this to a white note card. And check it out, you've got the glitter black, which I think is really cool, and you have all of those little shaker goodies that shake inside of each letter. You could make each letter different colors on the inside. Sky is the limit with this. And you can also use just a simple large word die or any die to create a shaker card like this. But that birthday message really looks cool this way. I have a bonus card for you before we go. Remember when I cut all the layers of that shaker window? I had all of those little leftover letters and I thought I'd use them on a bonus card. In this case, I changed the message also to say, wishing you a happy, happy day. So I have a white note card here, and I have the happy, happy birthday to you die cut. Now I'm using this die cut just as a guide. So I'm just temporarily taping it so that the word day is right along the bottom of our card. I'm putting adhesive into the openings of the letters for the word day, and I'm popping in the die cuts I had left over. These are 3 thick, so 3 white die cuts thick, and they're going right into that opening. Now I can remove that negative space. You'd be smarter to wait till it's dry, but I'm impatient. I removed that negative space, and I'm shifting it so that the words happy, happy are right above the day that I just glued down. So I'm just temporarily taping that to the side, and now I'm gluing in the letters for happy, happy into the openings. Again, each letter is 3 white cardstock letters thick. I love that dimension, but you could definitely do 1 die cut if you prefer. So I continued this until I had the words happy, happy day glued onto our white background. And then again, I can remove that guide, that background die cut. Just use that to make sure I got the spacing right. Okay, next I want to make those white letters stand out. So on top of that, I can either color the top of those die cuts, but I decided to instead use glitter cardstock. I got this new glitter pad from Memory Box. It's beautiful colors in there. I cut little pieces so that I could die cut individual letters from different colors and not have to die cut the entire background from glitter cardstock. So I did a few different colors and I glued those right on top of the stacked white die cut letters. I used my leftover black glitter die cut letters for the word day. I then just stamped wishing you a right above the happy, happy day message. So this was a fun way to use that birthday background for just an any day occasion. I also liked that I was able to use some of those leftover letters from my other card to make an additional one. Before we go, I did want to mention that Hero Arts had one more additional die and word combo that I didn't use in today's video. It's the Hero Arts Hello There. It happens to be my favorite of all of them. I like that Hello There die and the small stamp set that goes with it. And these are sold together. I actually have already used this in a video, so I'll link to it up here on the top right if you want to check it out. I used the word hello there, but I cut off the word there, so I just had the hello word alone. That's another fun thing you can do with a multi-word die, is cut the words apart so you can have different messages. And again, I'll link to this video if you want to check it out. All right, there are just 6 of many, many ways you can use your word dies creatively on cards. I hope this inspires you to break out some of the dies you have and try some new techniques. If you're interested in the particular products I show here, they are linked below my YouTube description, and you can head to my blog for more information. That's linked up here on the top right. In the middle are a couple other related videos you might like. I thank you for watching a second video today. Hope you have a good one, and we'll see you soon.